This week's parsha is Parsha Tisa, and since we just came out of Purim, I just feel the need to can't leave it so fast. And there are actually three things that we see from Purim in this week's parsha. That is to say, this first section of Parsha Tisa was actually the maftir a few weeks ago on the Shabbat before Rosh Chodesh. We read Parsha Shkalim. That's the beginning of Parsha Tisa, and we actually spoke about Parsha Shkalim last year, and I'll attach the video at the end so we can still tune into the spirit of Purim and Adar and fine. So that's one. The second is actually the reference to Mordechai. There's a section of the Gemara that starts trying to find three of the characters from Megillah in the Chumash, and the three are Esther, Mordechai, and Haman. It asks Esther, Minator Minayin, where do we find Esther in the Torah, and gives the source. Then Haman, Minator Minayin, gives the source, Hamina Etz. Then Mordechai, where do we find him? So it's in this section of the anointment oil, right, in chapter 30, verse 23, Mar Deror. And the way the Targum translates that is Mera Dachia. That's Mordechai. And then the third is that at the beginning of this past week, we had a Tanit Esther, right? It was a fast day. And on fast days, we read a specific section of the Torah that's actually in this week's parsha. That is to say, after the Chet HaEgel, when Moshe is supplicating on behalf of the Jewish people to God, that's the section that we read. So there you go, 3 for 3, not bad. And back to this week's parsha. This I heard from Rav Bernstein, and he's quoting the Ksava Kabbalah. So what he points out is like this. There's this little excerpt about Shabbat in the middle of this week's parsha, and it says, chapter 31, verse 13, V'atat daber el b'nei Yisrael le'mor ached shabtotai tishmoru ki oti b'nei u'b'nechem le'dorotechem la'adat ki ani Hashem HaKadishchem. Right? Now you speak to the children of Israel, saying, however, you must observe my Sabbaths, in the plural. How many Sabbaths are there? Shabtotai? I don't understand. Why are we talking about so many Shabbats? There's only one, happens once a week. And so you could say, well, look, there are multiple weeks in the year, it's talking about the multiple Shabbats we have to observe. That's why it's in the plural. But that can't be the answer because everywhere else in the Torah, when it talks about Shabbat, it talks about it in the singular, even just a few psukim's time. If we were to look, it says, V'shamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, lasot et ha-Shabbat l'dorotam b'rit olam. Okay, well, there you go. So it talks about Shabbat in the singular, and that's the way it works. So why here do we have it in the plural? That's his question. And he cites the answer in the Ksava Kabbalah. He says like this. That's because there are two aspects to Shabbat. There's, of course, and they're both rooted in the word of Shabbat. That is to say, there is the cessation of physical labor, of creative labor, I should say, of a malacha, right? It's not avoda, it's malacha. It's specifically something that's unique to the human capacity to create, like burning a fire or grinding wheat, and actually like dyeing, right? Like as in for coloring. Those are actions that are prohibited on Shabbat. And actually, I believe that's actually derived from this week's parsha in terms of the things that the Melech and the Mishkan, right? The things that were required to build the Mishkan is what is prohibited on Shabbat. Those 39 creative acts. Fine. So, and we've learned that from Lishbot. You're supposed to rest on Shabbat. The Jewish people are supposed to rest on Shabbat. Stop creating. However, now that we stop creating, but what are we supposed to do? We can't do anything, so what are we supposed to do? Just hang around, sit around? And that is, no. And that's the second aspect of Shabbat, since the Ksava Kabbalah. So what does he say? It's like the second comes from the word lashevet, which means to settle. As in we have to consolidate our experiences over the past week, and then reevaluate our perspectives, and then to bring in the spirituality. That is the second aspect of Shabbat. And that's what's happening. And in fact, this is alluded to in the pasuk itself. As in, what does it say? Because why? For it is a sign between me, capital M, me and you, for your generations, to know that I am Hashem, who makes you holy. So we see there's a key component to Shabbat, which means there's a bond that's happening between the Jewish people and God on Shabbat. So it's not just about finally I get a day off, work so hard. No, it's not only just relax, it's also about reconnecting to our spiritual source. And that's the second element of Shabbat. And in fact, I believe it's the Al-Sheikh who actually draws this out from Parsha Bereshit. If we're to look in chapter 2, verse 2, so as it says, V'echal Elohim b'yom hashvi'i l'melachto asher asa, What does that mean? By the seventh day, God completed his work which he had done, and he abstained on the seventh day from all his work which he had done. Now, those two parts of the sentence, of the verse, seem to contradict each other. At the end of the day, it says, on the seventh day, God finished what he was doing. But then it says, and he abstained on the seventh day from all his work which he had done, which means he must have finished the day before, on the sixth, if he was abstaining today. So how do we understand that? So says the Al-Sheikh, it's our idea. God created physical labor for 6 days. That's when he physically labored. Then he stopped his physical labor on the sixth day, and on the seventh day, he created Shabbat. That was a positive act of creation. And that was critical, because there can't just be this void on the seventh day. It's not just the cessation of activity, it's also this kind of positive connection that we're having on Shabbat. And we see that alluded to in our Parsha, as well as in the original creation. And that, says Rav Bernstein, I believe it's he's quoting the Ksava Kabbalah. He explains the statement in the Gemara. It says, "Ilmale shamru Yisrael shtei Shabbatot hayu nigalim." If the Jewish people only kept 2 Shabbats, they would be redeemed. Now, the classic question raised is, well, why 2? What's wrong with 1? Was 1 not good enough? What did we miss in that first one? And so the way the Ksava Kabbalah explains is, it's not about 2 Shabbats, 2 consecutive Shabbats. It's these 2 elements of Shabbat. It's not enough to just cease from Malacha. You also have to reconnect to our Creator in order to get that spiritual orientation, the spiritual content that we've been missing during the week, or at least that we need to rebuild from the week and bring back into the week, of course, in Havdalah. And that, this is reversing according to the Ksava Kabbalah, are some of the points to be made with this reference to Shabbat in our Parsha, and we'll end it there. Shabbat Shalom.